yeah, come on, you need to know a bit about mining, because
Yeah.
mining is the Achilles heel, in my opinion, of Bitcoin, and you want to know more about it. So what is actually going on there? How does this actually work physically? Just like you want to run a node, you also want to know what is happening there. And once you go down that rabbit hole, you see that this is actually something that we really have to work on, as you are saying. Like, if you look in the future, there's a really nice timeline in a book called Crypto Economics by Eric Voskuil, where he segregates phases for the future of Bitcoin. And if you look far away in the future, you will see a struggle between the individual and the state. And then this is really about hash rate control, So I sense that for the long-term future. And I think this is really important, that we make sure that there's freedom of transaction for the individual across the globe. Yeah.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of Bitfinex Talks. I'm your host, Ricardo Martinez. Today, I am very, very happy to have Bert de Groot from Bitcoin Brabant on my show. He's agreed to come on the show to talk about his work in Holland with his Bitcoin store, where he sells miners and has a mining operation that heats a tulip greenhouse and many other Bitcoin related products and services. Bert, how are you today? Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you very much, Ricardo. We met in Lugano, So
yeah, we certainly did.
Really, how was it for you, actually?
I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the conference. I thought it was amazing.
Yeah. The drone show, were you impressed?
I saw it last year. And last year I was like closer to where they had like the speakers to hear the narration for the drone show. And this year I was like further down the lake a little bit. So I didn't really hear like what they were saying while the drones were flying around. But yeah, the drone shows are incredible. Every time I see them, I'm blown away.
Yeah, it was really impressive. And the story I really enjoyed, because you had really the story, the origin story of Bitcoin there. So it was really cool. It was first time for me to see a drone show. So
okay, yeah, the year before was the first time I'd ever seen one in real life, and I was blown away by it, to be honest. This year, since I had already seen the one from the year before, I guess it wasn't as impactful because I'd already seen one, but it was still very, very good.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah,
and then as you said, your long flight home.
yeah, I had 3 flights to get back home, but 3 flights and a train ride. So, yeah. How did you feel about the conference? Did you catch any of the lectures or presentations?
No, because in general everything is recorded. So I try to just speak with people when I'm on a conference, because to physically catch up with all the people, it's for me more important than watching lectures, which I can just view on YouTube if I ever want to later.
Yeah, that's pretty much the same strategy I had. I was meeting Bitcoiners and trying to line up podcast interviews, and that's actually how I got you on the show. So I'm glad I did so. Yeah. So for those that don't know, do you want to explain what Bitcoin Brabant is?
Yeah, for sure. So a couple of years ago, 2021, around block 700,000, decided to start doing something for the community, start doing something for Bitcoin. I started to heat my home with a Bitcoin miner, and that was quite a challenge because the ASICs, the machines, the heavy computers make a shitload of noise. So I started to create sound dampening boxes and throw that on the internet, and share it with everyone, so everyone could just copy it and do it themselves wherever they are. And then the natural gas prices exploded in the Netherlands. And along with that, my electricity price also went crazy.
I bet.
And I had multiple ASICs at home on a very good tariff in 2021. But the tariff, I think, went like 6-fold. So from like 5 cents to like 30 cents or something. So I had a spare ASIC. And there was a greenhouse who had a fixed contract on electricity, and crazy price on natural gas, when the Ukraine crisis started. So I asked him, can I just pay your electricity? I put the miner there, and then you have the heat for free. And he was like, yeah, that's a good deal. Why not? So And I recorded that little video, put it on Twitter, and it had 500,000 views. And then the phone started ringing, like, oh, can you build this for me? And I have a business with excess electricity, with solar, and I have need for heat in a greenhouse. And this is how it started. So the first greenhouse was not the tulip one, it was hydrangea. And then the tulip house came along, the greenhouse came along. And yeah, from that, the tulip bubble story, of course, people loved that. The combination was really funny. So that really took off. So we had CNN and Euronews and all these large news agencies coming and basically joking about it, but it was actually serious because the return of investment in the natural gas crisis here was within a year. So it was really worthwhile starting to mine, and these installations are all still running. And as I told you, we might have had some delay today because the Dutch national news, it's called the NOS, it's the largest news station in the Netherlands. It's fully owned by the government. They actually came for a radio recording in one of the warehouses that we also heat here nearby.
Oh, wow.
And they were actually really asking interesting questions, So we are now starting to also see mainstream media join in. And that was never the case here in the Netherlands. There was a lot of opposition in the past, yeah.
Okay. And how many of these greenhouses did you actually set up for mining operations?
A couple, but only the hydrangea and the tulip one were public, and the other ones where I helped out with or did some consultancy or did calculations about airflow and which kind of when you get a bit larger installations on air, sometimes you need to put additional measures in, let's say. So and then we do some calculations and then set that up. And so we did a broad range of things. And now we're also a bit more broadly consulting on larger scale operations. But of course, we also go all the way down to the level of the Bitaxe. We are the main distributor for Bitaxe in Europe also. So we sold over 1,000 already. Micro miners, it's really fun. And so we cover the whole range. And then next to that, of course, when you do the mining, you want to secure a Bitcoin properly. So then you go down the rabbit hole of all the hardware wallets or signing devices, as you would properly call it. And that also took off like a rocket. So because we made very clear that we delete all data, I wasn't a ledger hack myself, so that was clear. And that also took off very well. And that's what Bitcoin Brabant now is. So it's a very broad range of Bitcoin company, let's say. And we get a lot of help from people. So it's a lot of fun. And we are growing. So
one of the things that I want to get into the Bitaxe thing in a minute, but one of the things that I really liked that you were telling me in Lugano is that Bitcoin Brabant is pretty unique in the sense that you pay your suppliers in Bitcoin. So through the whole supply chain of the products that you have, you're on a Bitcoin
I pushed
standard.
Blockstream actually, because it was really funny. Like when they came with the Jade, it's a really nice product, really cheap, of course. And I really wanted to pay in Bitcoin, and they didn't accept it. I was like, come on, guys. So I also put it on Twitter, like, this is not fun. Like, and at that moment, so more than 2 years ago, we lost our payment rails in euros because we did something with Bitcoin, and of course they blocked it. So we were running our shop for over 2 years on Bitcoin only. And then a couple of weeks ago, all of a sudden we could start accepting fiat again. All of a sudden, Bitcoin is not that crazy anymore. And that was the first time that we actually had fiat income coming into our shop. But for more than 2 years, we ran fully on Bitcoin, and that was
amazing.
Yeah, and it's really fun. So also all the suppliers have always been paid only with Bitcoin, just like that we also sold only for Bitcoin. And the interesting thing is when we started to accept Bitcoin payments, we saw quite a high volume of PayPal, for instance. But the issue with PayPal is you have to deliver all the data, including the sending of the shipping details.
Wow.
That's like completely insane. And they sell this data, So people should understand that, like, if you use certain online payment tools, that like all your data is literally sold, and they have no clue, And that's something that also I find quite interesting because you pay them a lot also. So what you see now, if you order on our website, is like Bitcoin is, of course, for free, let's say, because for us there's no cost on
Mhm.
Lightning or on chain, because on chain is also on the customer side, and then we add the amount that we have to pay to the payment service provider anyway. So I hope that scares people off, but until now you still see a lot of fiat payments. So yeah, let's see.
With the Bitcoin payments you receive from your customers, are you receiving most of those through Lightning, or are people still making
Half
on-chain payments?
half.
Half half.
And then, of course, when it's the fees go up, the set per VByte is up, then of course we see more Lightning than on-chain. But when the fees are low, we still see quite some on-chain payments. But again, privacy-wise, I would always advise Lightning, because
Mhm.
if people would like cluster the payments that are coming in the Bitcoin Brabant, it's quite a lot, but they could of course see which wallets were connected to it. Yeah, do you want this? I don't think you want this. I would prefer to use Lightning if I would do payments myself. So
Okay, that makes sense. And then back to the topic of the Bitaxe home miners. For those that don't know, like explain what a Bitaxe is, and then explain like the different models that exist.
yeah, so let's wait. I'll grab a hashboard.
Okay.
So as you can see, I'm just creating the new bit chimneys that we are going to sell. The bit chimney is a single hashboard miner. In a normal ASIC, you have 3 of these hashboards in line. They consume about 3 kilowatts of power. It's quite a lot. So for home, yeah, you want maybe 1 kilowatt, to have your living room heated, because 3 kilowatt is quite a lot. Now, if you look at this hashboard, there are 128 chips
Okay.
on this board. And what is a Bitaxe? A Bitaxe is one of these chips on an open source board, and then basically everything is open source. So the whole development of the Bitaxe, there's one hanging here, as you can see with the
Little fan on it.
microphone. Yeah, and then there's a little fan on top of it, and with that you can play around and really learn about mining. So when I started in 2021, don't do it like me. I paid like over 10,000 euros for an ASIC, and a lot of noise, and you have all these problems, a lot of cost. Yeah, just buy a Bitaxe and learn a bit about mining, and then join the lottery, either as a single solo miner, or you can also say I do it for Lightning, and then after 100 days you have a cup of coffee that you can actually pay for with Lightning. So that's the 2 options you have, and then people go down the mining rabbit hole a bit. I actually unplugged this one because it makes quite some noise. I can actually, maybe you hear it in the microphone when we start it up. It's you see the light also.
Yeah, I see the light. I'm not
Yeah.
hearing it though.
No?
Yeah, no, it's actually
Yeah,
pretty quiet.
it's quite silent actually. So
Yeah.
some people even change the fans on it, but in general, this is really doable. A lot of people put it on the desk, and especially at work, the electricity is paid by the company anyway. So no, and it's only 15 watts, so that's like a couple cents per day. That's nothing.
So how powerful are those? Like, are they comparable to like an ASIC that you would buy from, say, like Bitmain or What's Miner or something like
You
that?
mean like if you have like a decent ASIC of a 3 kilowatt ASIC? Yeah, so as I said, like there's like 300 plus chips. So it's basically a Watts miner or a Bitmain end miner. A new generation one would be 300 of these Bitaxes. That's basically how you could compare it. And then also like the Bitcoin network, that's quite easy to compare it with, because you have the amount of exahash. And then you have this amount of gigahash. And as you said, there are multiple versions. So the newest version is the Gamma. That's the one that is hanging here also. That's from the newest S21 Pro. So that's the newest Bitmain machine, the most efficient machine on the planet. And that's where the chips are from. So it's the most efficient you can mine with this little device. But it's basically the network compares, the total Bitcoin network compares with 1 billion of these Bitaxes. That's approximately the amount. So then you also can physically grasp how many of these chips are running the Bitcoin network. So that's around 1 billion. And that's a lot.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is that if we have 1 million solo miners, we would, with one Bitaxe across the globe, so 1 million people joining this lottery to mine a block every 10 minutes, then actually we will hit a block every week. So someone will hit the block of 3.125 Bitcoin every week, which is currently approximately, let's say, 300,000 almost. We're going in the direction of $300,000. Let's say, yeah. So it's super fun, and as I said, you can also do it with Lightning.
Yeah, I think with fees, it's probably over 300,000. And then I've seen like Bitcoin Magazine and like other like stories online of people with Bitaxes hitting a block, like just solo mining.
This happened. Yeah. And that's also when it really started to take off. Like, the Dumb and Dumber meme where, oh, are you telling me there's a chance?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's every 10 minutes you have, as I said, 1 in a billion chance, basically. So you join the network and there is a chance, but it's of course insanely low. But it's really fun because you strengthen the network, decentralize it, and you join it. You join the lottery. Yeah.
In your opinion, as someone that's mined with both like actual ASICs and then Bitaxes, how important do you think open source miners are? Like
this is really great. I'm really happy that this is happening because it opens the, how do you say, like the box of Pandora of mining, right? So what is actually happening there? There are basically 2 large manufacturers, and then one specifically, Bitmain, which is really dominating the ASIC market. And to show this full stack of, let's say, closed source mining and what is actually happening on both the pool level as on the ASIC level, it's a rabbit hole by itself, and that has opened up because of this open source mining movement. And it's very important because what we will see now is that this full stack, because it's open source and the most efficient stack, everyone can develop on this. And then as soon as we start to see also mining chips becoming more broadly available, we can build, let's say, purposeful machines with ASICs in whatever we can think about, because everything is open source. So then next to that, Bitcoin, of course, the protocol is open source. Finally, mining now has also become open source. So this project is really important. And every BitX we sell, there's $5 of donation going into the Open Source Mining United Fund. So we can like grow it very rapidly. So we've already paid tens of thousands of dollars into this fund. So actually we can propel this movement faster. Yeah.
Amazing. And how much does a Bitaxe cost? Like the new one that just came out? Like if I wanted to buy
Netherlands, it's around €200. In US, of course, it's cheaper because we have 21% VAT and we have the import cost and all this crazy shit in Europe, So doing things in Europe is always more expensive than the US.
That makes sense. Like you mentioned that we need like 1 billion miners for somebody with a Bitaxe to find the reward at some point, like every week. Like how many miners?
1 million.
Oh, 1 million. Okay, sorry, my bad. But how many miners do you think need to be out there, like with people home mining, to kind of counteract these huge like corporate mining warehouses? And like we've seen like talk about them like OFAC censoring certain addresses and stuff that are blacklisted. Like if we have enough home miners that are still willing to process those transactions and ensure Bitcoin censorship resistance, like how many Bitaxes do you think we need to achieve that?
I think this is a far-fetched goal, so I would not expect this to ensue. But as I said, if you have 1 million Bitaxes, then you have 1 million out of 1 billion in total, let's say. So that's 1/1000th of the network. So that's 0.1%. What in the end is important is that indeed you're talking about, for me, it's really pool centralization, So you have individuals or companies actually controlling the mining. And the largest part of the mining is, of course, they want this network to survive and to have a free network across the globe. So if you look in the split of the pools, as you said, there was one pool, the F2 pool, that at some point started to go on the OFAC compliant direction. And then directly a lot of these individual companies and miners with F2 pool said, we want this network to remain unpolitical. We want to stay out of politics. So we migrate directly to a pool that's not doing this. And I think for the upcoming years, we will still see it in this direction. But a project like Ocean Pool, where also we as Bitcoin Brabant created a statement, we are running our own datum server with our own block templating in the Netherlands, where we then connect to with our miners, and other people can also connect to that. We do that to make sure that we have full control over, or as much control as possible over this block templating in the current environment that we have. This will improve in the future. But to make very clear that this is important, because if government indeed on a worldwide scale starts to crack down on miners and say, okay, this is something you can mine, this is something you can't mine, we will have an issue. But if you look global, in a global level, the mining is so distributed that it will stay, let's say, without censorship, because there's no real dominant player at the moment.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know that like the US has a huge like portion of the mining industry, but then also Russia, who's like politically opposed to the US, has a giant, China also still. And then there's just places like in South America, Central Asia. So the mining is very, very distributed. I would just like to see more people like home mining, I guess. Like, you know how like there's a pressure on like Bitcoiners to like run a node, like once you kind of get really into Bitcoin. I think running a mining node at home with a Bitaxe, raising the bar a little
bit. For me, it's very simple. Like when I went down the rabbit hole, you spend your 10,000 hours on Bitcoin because it's a ever ongoing rabbit hole. And you want to know everything. Yeah, come on. You need to know a bit about mining, because mining is the Achilles heel, in my opinion, of Bitcoin, and you want to know more about it. So what is actually going on there? How does this actually work physically? Just like you want to run a node, you also want to know what is happening there. And once you go down that rabbit hole, you see that this is actually something that we really have to work on, as you are saying. Like if you look in the future, there's a really nice timeline in a book called Crypto Economics by Eric Voskuil, where he segregates phases for the future of Bitcoin. And if you look far away in the future, you will see a struggle between the individual and the state. And then this is really about hash rate control, So I sense that for the long-term future. And I think this is really important, that we make sure that there's freedom of transaction for the individual across the globe. Yeah,
I agree. I think they've already kind of been working on that too. I remember a couple of years back, Peter Todd posted about an MIT program called Chain Anchor, where they were trying to like develop a framework to force miners to become compliant. And like I know that they really want to have that control over the network, but that would destroy like the value proposition of Bitcoin. So, yeah.
And that's why I'm very happy that you see, like, if you look in mempool, you see the hash rate, and then you see Foundry USA, and you see Endpool. And if you think a bit about, USA is USA, and then Endpool, you can fill in the blanks there, let's say. And you constantly see them switch top position, So I think, okay, this at least keeps the network in check, right? Because you have these two relatively opposing powers that want freedom of transactions for themselves, let's say. So that looks quite promising and quite good. So as long as that part is still looking like it is at the moment, I think we should not worry too much. But I think at some point maybe they start to collude or work together. Then the individual needs to do something, because otherwise it becomes a very bleak future for Bitcoin, where there's full censorship of these large entities.
Another thing that I've noticed is like in the US and in Europe, it seems there's like this push for like climate regulations around energy, and mining has been kind of demonized. And the truth is actually like the exact opposite. Like they say that it consumes so much energy, it's going to boil the oceans and this and that. But then when you look into it, you realize that like mining incentivizes like using waste energy and like green energy because miners want the lowest cost for their energy in order to remain profitable. What are your thoughts on these regulators that may not understand this dynamic of Bitcoin mining.
Yeah, but this is rapidly changing already, right? So you see all the old research, which was also pushed by some bad actors, let's say.
Yeah.
I won't name it too much, but there was a Dutch guy from the Dutch Central Bank involved, that was taken over a lot across the globe. But we are so much further now, right? So if you look in the Bitcoin Amsterdam conference, I also showed some installations in the Netherlands, in the largest greenhouses on our planet, where we are growing tomatoes and peppers for European supermarkets. And yeah, if you buy a pepper or a tomato in the supermarket, you have an insanely high chance that it's actually heated by Bitcoin miners. So,
okay.
and these Bitcoin miners, they not only heat the greenhouses, but they also balance the grid. So they're relatively large, many megawatts, and it's very simple. If you crack down on these miners, your electricity price will go up because you're not balancing the grid anymore. So there's more grid cost, and that will come back to the consumer. And of course, the heat becomes more expensive to grow the tomatoes and the peppers. So your actually price of food goes up. So the impact directly of like regulating mining is this result. But for most people, this is not really clear yet. And we have like sent letters to the Ministry of Finance. We have had a lot of talks with people to like, look what we are doing. Like, we are increasing the renewable energy transition in the Netherlands. Plus, instead of natural gas heating, we use now electric heating. What else do you want, Plus, because of the extra income stream of Bitcoin, the food becomes less expensive. So how can you be against this? And then the reaction in general of the ministry, like, no, Bitcoin, dirty word, we don't want to touch it. But I think if we keep on showing all this positive development and innovation that is ongoing, at some point, you cannot, like, how do you say, like, neglect this, like it's there. What do you want to do with this? In this sense, it's positive. So I would expect that at some point you have to embrace this. You cannot go against this.
I would agree. And then like recently there was a story, I can't remember if it was like Finland or Norway, but there was like a town that they didn't like the fact that Bitcoin mining was taking place, and they did something to like remove the miners, and then their heating costs went up like 20% because they were using.
It was in Norway so in Norway you have some of these relatively small grids on hydro, so there's excess electricity there, and this had a community of 3,500 households connected to this microgrid. And then the Bitcoin miner came in, because there was a shitload of excess electricity there, and they said, okay, we put a Bitcoin mine there, and then we pay for the electricity. So the price of the electricity for these 3,500 households dropped. Yeah, of course, because the mining was just paying for this electricity and grid and everything. So, and then the local politicians didn't like it, so they closed it down. And then, of course, directly, somebody has to pay for it. So it comes back to the 3,500 households, and the prices went up 20%. So, of course, this has an impact. It's like if you shut down all the Bitcoin mining in Texas, there will be an impact, and that impact will be the consumers will have to pay for all this. So that's just how it works, right? So, and it's the same in the Netherlands. Yeah.
I feel like Texas is pretty open-minded to mining now, though, that they've seen like the benefits of the grid stabilization, because I've talked to some of the miners there in Texas, and they like work pretty closely with like the local governments, and they are willing to shut down like when there's peak demand and things like that. So
they balance the grid. This is exactly what they do, right? And we do that also in the Netherlands, but not on such a large scale as they are doing in Texas. But Texas is a couple of years ahead of the Netherlands. So the Netherlands is a shitload of solar and wind generation is coming online, but Texas is already there. So their intermittent issues are much larger than we have in the Netherlands, but that's coming in the next year and the year after. This is also going to be here in the Netherlands. And then, you might actually want to have a load balancer large scale on optimal points. And then if you actually combine it with greenhouses, that's actually, of course, a much better solution than just blowing the heat into the air, which is happening in the US. But Texas doesn't need heat because it's already warm. So that's the difference, right? But that's the combination that we could make in the Netherlands,
Do you think that like with this push that the world is moving in towards like cleaner, greener energy, renewables, like you mentioned, solar, wind, that like in order for that to be successful, like Bitcoin mining is like a necessary component, like for these unreliable grid issues that you're discussing.
Yeah, it's just the most profitable way to do it. So what will happen is that the countries that embrace this, they just have more money left for other things. That's how I see it. So of course, this also how do you say, like, it incentivizes the growth of it also, because you have a paying customer directly. And it's not even for renewables like nuclear. It could be the same, right? So if you have a large nuclear plant that you want to build and there's no demand for this electricity yet, there you already have a minimum paying customer, which is Bitcoin. And that of course makes then these larger projects more feasible directly. So you can do large scale electricity generation projects more easily without too much risk, because you have a consumer named Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's super important. With the Netherlands, like if you're not, using the heat like to supplement a greenhouse, is mining profitable like for miners, or are the energy costs like really, really high, like you described earlier?
Yeah, so this is twofold. So in the Netherlands, electricity cost is one of the highest on the planet.
Okay.
But there's a range, in the Netherlands. So the consumer, the household is paying a shit load of tax. Like it's a lot. So most have solar panels on the roof. And what is happening now is that you have to pay a lot if you deliver back on the grid. So people don't want to deliver back on the grid anymore because it costs them money. So what do? You put a miner there, and as soon as something would go back on the grid, you throw it through the miner, because that's better than throwing it back on the grid. And you take some old miners for that. It's fine. And then so that helps. And then of course also heating. You have some electricity, spare electricity. You had it anyway. You can heat your home with it, and that's what people are doing also in a hobby level. And natural gas is quite expensive because it's even more heavily taxed. So you see that movement is happening. So we've helped thousands of people in the Netherlands that are mining at home. That's really fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the large scale, so the super large scale. So like I said, these greenhouses, multi-megawatt scale, they have this super large connection with the grid, and they are paid handsomely if they can actually shut down the mining to load balance. And that actually on the electricity, they don't really pay tax, because if you're a really large consumer, you don't really pay tax in the Netherlands. So we have like let's say a corporate government interminglement, where you see that large corporations are really well off in the Netherlands. So if you are large enough, you don't really pay tax. So that's perfect, right? So these super large scale miners, there's a really good opportunity there. And then on the mid scale, so that's the businesses I dealt with the last couple of years. They also had quite some solar and wind generation sometimes that they build out, and they can't deliver back on the grid because the grid said, no, we don't want you to deliver back. Yeah, you have this electricity now there anyway, so you have dead assets there. Let's do something with this electricity. And actually, we have this really old gas heater hanging over there. Let's put some mining also to heat. This combination of both getting the waste gone that you couldn't do anything with anyway, and then also heating instead of with the expensive natural gas. Sometimes it makes sense. So these are the range of installations that we've done and that we see happening. Yeah,
that's super interesting. Back to this will be my last question, by the way, but back to the topic of open source mining. We've seen like some people like use old S9 miners to like heat water heaters and things of that nature. Do you think that now that there's open source mining available that anyone can contribute to, we'll start to see more devices that have miners like built into them? Like, I don't know, say like a smart TV that mines while you watch TV, or, like speakers that mine while you listen to music, or things of that nature.
Yeah, this has always been an idea I've seen in the Bitcoin space.
Mm-hmm.
But I still believe that we will see Bitcoin mining at the locations where it really makes sense.
Okay.
So in excess electricity locations, most likely a lot large scale, of course. And then the Bitcoiners will want to mine also, and they will search for these locations where there's excess. And then probably in combination with heat, and then this load balancing, which is a combination with access, of course. Those will be the locations where mining will be done. And of course, you can heat water with it, and there will be Bitcoiners doing this. But as a general product, this is not the best solution, of course, because if you have a heat pump with an efficiency of, let's say, COP6, 1 watt in is 6 watt out, and it's purposely built just to heat. And miners are chips, so they break faster. They are not made for this super efficient heating. But I see it as being built for, like, I've written an article about Bitcoin bathhouses, I think 2 years ago or something. I would expect this to happen, but it's a purely Bitcoin driven direction. I don't see it as the general purpose standard across the globe, that if you have indeed a water heater, that it's always mining Bitcoin. No, I don't see that happening, because purely on an efficiency level and on a durability level, I don't see that part fly.
Okay. Well, thank you for your insight. Bert, it's been great having you on the show. Thank you for coming on. I really enjoyed talking to you about Bitcoin mining and Bitcoin Brabant. How can people find out about Bitcoin Brabant? How can they order Bitaxes? How can they call you to get them to wire up the miners for their greenhouse? Can you give out your information?
Yeah, so bitcoinbrabant.com, of course. So you can find everything there. And then we are on X, Bitcoin Brabant, and we are on Noster, Bitcoin Brabant, LinkedIn, Bitcoin Brabant. Everything is Bitcoin Brabant. So you just type in what you see here, and you will find us for sure.
Okay, amazing. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you for inviting me, Ricardo.